Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome once again in Sisters Corner. You're watching IQRA TV. And the topic we are discussing today is parenting. And we have a lovely guest, Ghazala Mir. और हम लोग बहुत सारी बात कर रहे हैं ग़ज़ाला मीर से पेरेंटिंग के मतलब और क्या ज़रूरी है पेरेंटिंग में, क्योंकि बहुत सारे हमारे जो ख़वातीन हैं, पेरेंट्स हैं, वो बैक होम से आते हैं, मे बी कमिंग फ्रॉम इंडिया, श्रीलंका, बांग्लादेश, पाकिस्तान, नेपाल, एनीवेयर, और जो यहाँ के लॉज होते हैं वो नहीं जानते हैं, और इस मतलब भी बहुत ही तफसीलन बात करेंगे। लेकिन चूँकि मेरा लास्ट वाला जो क्वेश्चन है वो अभी मिस ग़ज़ाला मीर से थोड़ा सा nearly going to finish, so most important point is still there. We are going to discuss is about how we can differentiate between negative and positive discipline. So हम लोग कैसे अपने बच्चों को encourage कर सकते हैं, किस तरीके से उनको encourage कर सकते हैं पॉजिटिव वे से, और कैसे हम लोग उनको नेगेटिव वेज से अवॉइड करके उनकी पेरेंटिंग कर सकते हैं। So let's move on to Ms. Ghazala Mir. Yes, please carry on to the question.
Okay, so हमने so far तीन जो concepts हैं वो discuss किए, appropriate expectations, empathy, self-awareness, जो एक parent को होना चाहिए, and their understanding.
Yeah.
So the fourth one is about positive discipline. ठीक है?
Yes.
So what positive discipline? We'll talk about the negatives as well. But for me, it's important. Let's talk about positive discipline, because sometimes when our child is getting on our nerves, we will say something negative to them. You know, don't be a pain. बैठ जाओ आराम से.
Yeah.
क्या मुझे तंग किया हुआ है?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a negative. Yeah.
Very true.
अगर child जो है toddler बार-बार तंग कर रहा है, then what are you doing? You're picking up the child and बैठो on the sofa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're now at the end of your tether, at the end of your thought process कि भाई अभी मैं tired हूँ, तो I want him or she to keep quiet. That's negative. ठीक है?
Yeah.
So when we talk about positive discipline, is about teaching the child good behavior that is acceptable and behavior that is not acceptable.
A very good question coming in my head. How can we be dealing with the child positively in a negative environment? It is, I'm not talking about the environment around us, but like whatever you're going through, and the very good point you're discussing. Please, can you go in detail a bit?
Okay. When we say positive discipline, when you are continuously talking to the child using praise, giving the child reward, giving the child, negotiating with the child, giving the child responsibility, which is fair.
Yeah.
Giving them fair penalties, right? For instance, how we'll say, you've got a child who you are saying, well, I want you to wake up in the morning and I want you to make your bed. When we're talking about appropriate expectations, we're talking about a child who's able to do that. Maybe, how old do you think? 5-year-old child is able to pick up a duvet and straighten it.
Exactly.
You're not expecting the bed to be made perfectly, but it's what they can manage.
Very true.
And that's a starting point of giving responsibility. And it's a positive.
And the right responsibility.
And the right responsibility and an appropriate responsibility because they're learning. Yeah? So, you know...
and then being patient, whatever the jobs or the responsibilities you're giving to the children, if they are going to fail, so you should have a better control on yourself, being patient. So you can, the way you deal with the child, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for instance, if your 5-year-old has actually in a happy mood themselves, maybe they've had a good sleep and they're happy looking forward to school, they'll make their bed and you're going to reward them and say, well done.
Yes.
And what's the reward going to be? It doesn't have to be a sweet.
Yeah.
A hug.
Yes.
I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
That's a positive. That's
Exactly.
a reward.
Yeah.
You're praising them.
Rather than spoiling on something wrong.
Yeah. A simple thing.
Giving them the affection.
Exactly, love.
Yeah.
The children don't always expect. Look, if you set up your children to say, well, if you make your bed, and I will give you a chocolate biscuit, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you are teaching the child bribery.
Yes.
If you do this, what you need to do is you need to say, you know, the appropriate fair penalty is that if, for instance, he's made the bed, you're giving them a reward of a hug, and, you know, and you're happy and you're saying, well done, you're encouraging them.
Exactly.
So that encourages them to get up in the morning and do it.
Encouraging the positive behavior.
Yeah. So let's talk about the negative.
Yeah.
So if the child gets up, maybe he's not happy going to school, he has an attachment with you and it's difficult, or maybe someone is bullying him, or he's not looking forward, his language is different, you've just come from Pakistan, and he speaks Urdu at home and they speak in English. So many different factors are going on in his mind. So when he doesn't get up and he doesn't do the bed, rather than criticizing and say, why haven't you made the bed? You're a naughty boy. That is going to impact on him, on his mind. That's a negative, because what you're doing is he's already distressed. You don't understand what he's feeling. So, you know, understand that there's something going on. Just ask and say, look, I have to. You talk about penalties, and they're fair penalties, and you say, well, you know what? If you don't make your bed, then we're not going to have time, and you and me to sit together and play your favorite game before you go to school, or watch your favorite program. But if you do make your bed, then you'll have that time. So what you're doing is you're giving them choices, and you're negotiating, and you're giving them good, fair penalties.
And then other than you can say, we can go to the park, or maybe over the weekend we can go to the restaurant.
So many different things you can do.
And if still sometimes it happens that the children do not understand, that the parents do not understand, maybe the child is having some special needs as well. And sometimes if we help them, for example, if they're not doing their bed or something, we can just tell, okay, let's do it together.
Let's do it together, absolutely.
And simple.
Yeah.
And when you are getting involved in their tasks, they get encouragement. Yeah, am I right?
That's right. And I think that what you're doing is you're understanding their feeling. Maybe, you know, something's going on. Come on, let me help. And there's a positive, because you're guiding them, aren't you? Again,
and then when you're working together, so again, it's a teamwork. They can feel and they can see that our mom is
understanding,
helpful, kind, understandable, approachable.
And also, again, when I say doing fair penalties, that needs to be also given two choices. If you make your bed, then we've got more time to do this, that, or the other, something that a child enjoys doing with you. And if you don't, then I'm afraid you won't be able to do that. And it's being fair. It's teaching them responsibility. It's not giving them an extra chore, because you're looking at the age appropriateness.
Or maybe you can cut the time for example, they are having computer screen time for 1 hour, and you're telling if the child is not listening, you can tell them, okay, then you are going to have it for 40 minutes rather than 1 hour. Or you can have for 30 minutes rather than 40 minutes.
I would say
cutting the time, isn't it?
I would say that would work for an older child. Someone who's coming up to teenage.
Exactly.
You know, as they get older, teenagers are sort of having their own mind. And
it could be watching time, anything.
Anything. For again, we look at age appropriateness. And for a 5-year-old, I would say, you know, the time of concept is not really going to register with them. So we can say, you know, taking away something, or not able to do something, at that time because you know the chore is important. It's teaching them
we can
responsibility. It's teaching the child responsibilities. And building up their confidence and self-esteem at the same time.
Which is really, really important because sometimes in our life we are very educated, we have degrees, we are very professional, but we end up with not having enough confidence and self-esteem because if you do not have self-confidence, you cannot communicate, you cannot express your feelings. Which is really, really important. So that encouragement in the child build up their growth later on in the future as well.
Also, I think when we do talk about negative discipline, we then fall into the category of shouting. If the child, for instance, if you've not understood the feelings behind the behavior, because again, you don't have self-awareness of yourself and your own feelings, you're not going to be able to
know why.
So if you're not picking up why the child is behaving, their behavior through your negative discipline will become more difficult for them in their behavior. It will escalate. So it will even become more difficult to regulate them because you've not understood them, and their behavior will become worse by maybe screaming, by saying I'm not going to do it, by having a tantrum, throwing things. And what happens next? You're going to slap the child. Okay? But the child won't understand why you've slapped them because for him, he hasn't done anything wrong. So that, again, is a trauma for the child. Because they don't understand their behavior is impacting on you. Because they're children, they're learning. So you're supposed to guide them, not hit them, not shout at them. Admit. Sometimes as a parent you feel overwhelmed and you'll use your tone of voice as, can you keep quiet? Which is an authoritative tone. But when you're actually screaming and shouting, that itself is trauma for a child. So coming back to the laws, when we've got families who've come from, as you said, from the South Asian background or from the Middle East, they have a lot of difficulty adjusting to the laws in UK because what they don't understand is that the Children's Act 2004 specifically says that any harm, physical harm to the child, which is grievous bodily harm, is an offence against children. So when we talk about parenting, we are looking at parents who smack their children. There's a difference. One, although in England and Northern Ireland, smacking at the moment isn't banned. Whereas smacking is banned in 60 different countries. In Wales, it's in Scotland, you're not allowed to smack. Because some parents argue that if we don't give them a smack, how can we discipline them? But if you go back into your own background and you know when you were slapped, how negative was that? The pain and the trauma, and the child doesn't know what they've done wrong. So what happens? What happens is that if you've smacked your child and you've left a bruise and a mark, not only does it traumatize the child, but it also impacts on you because when the child goes to school and nursery and that bruise is there, the teachers, the safeguarding people at the school have a duty to report it to the local authority.
And safeguarding is really, really important. और यही होता है हमारे बहुत सारी ख़वातीन में जो कि इस कंट्री में नए आते हैं और उनको लॉस का पता नहीं होता, they find it difficult to settle and accommodate themselves with UK laws. Yeah, तो उसमें क्या होता है कि आपके बच्चे जो है होता है sometimes if violence like slave किया तो वो violence में आ जाता है. Smaking is a completely different thing. तो आपके बच्चे ले जाते हैं, then again it's a big trouble. फिर again वो trauma, फिर उनका trauma. तो that's very hard for the parents, for the families as well. तो आपने जैसे कि बहुत अच्छे तरीके से explain किया कि positivity और फिर positive encouragement बच्चों में क्यों ज़रूरी है, and that is good for your health, for your mental and physical health, and for the children as well. क्योंकि जो negativity हम लोग बच्चों में डालते हैं through our violence or physical or mental harm, तो वो उनकी पूरी लाइफ को इम्पैक्ट करती है, rather than उनका पॉजिटिव या नेगेटिव जो भी बिहेवियर होता है उसको एप्रोप्रिएट वे से डील करना विद पॉजिटिविटी. या सो आप कोई भी नेगेटिव बिहेवियर होता है उसको एक पॉजिटिव वे से डील कर सकते हैं. जैसे कि मिस गजाला मीर ने बहुत अच्छी रोशनी डाली है उन पॉइंट्स पे कि हम लोग कैसे इनकरेज कर सकते हैं थ्रू नेगेटिव बिहेवियर थ्रू positive approach.
Yes. Again, positive approach is praising, empathy, rewards, penalties, fair penalties.
Yeah.
You can't say to a child, you didn't clean the room, कि आपने वो अपना काम नहीं किया जो मैंने आपको कहा था, तो for 3 days you can't play on your computer because physically ये possible नहीं है. 3 days के लिए what is that child going to do? And that's not a positive discipline, it's a punishment.
Yeah.
You cannot punish a child.
Yeah.
You have to understand that a child is a child and they have needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the most important thing, one of the things that I have to point out is that the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health report says that damage to children's behavior is through smacking and physical abuse. Yeah. It develops children's poor mental health 3 times.
That's very
yeah. 3 times likely children are to develop poor mental health through physical smacking and abuse, and 2 times likely for that child to have a serious injury, because when a child smacks a child, it develops into assault.
Yes.
Because a parent doesn't know their strength.
Yeah.
Right? And it develops into assault, and what happens is that that child later on in life has serious
Crimes.
issues and then turns to crime, and they become aggressive because that's what they've learned from their parents.
Yeah, whatever they have seen.
And hence then when we have this issue about domestic violence, the men out there, sometimes when you look into their background, there's been abuse in their home.
Yeah. And it's really important for the children to see rather than what you're telling, because sometimes children do not understand your language. They cannot get the information you are getting, but rather than representing yourself, present yourself in a positive way so they learn more better, isn't it?
Yeah, I think again, as I said, the way they will learn is when you as a parent understand where your triggers, emotional triggers are, when you become angry, when you become stressed, when you can't cope. Yeah, when you learn about yourself, when you understand that about yourself, you're going to be a more reflective parent, a whole parent who will understand that this is my emotional feelings.
Yeah.
This is how I feel. I must not reflect that on my own children.
Yeah. One I have seen, few parents, they sometimes in a group or in gatherings or in public, and the child is doing something, and they humiliate the child in public, saying, shouting, screaming. Sometimes even they are with friends and families, with relatives. And this is a very negative aspect, I would say, in some parents, where they do not think or care about the feelings of the child and how it can impact on their child. So what would you like to say about that?
Again, self-awareness. Yeah, remember one of the most important constructs within learning is that if you were, you tell the parent to reflect back when, if you were in that position, empathize. Yeah?
Yeah.
Bring the parent back and say that, was there a time in your life, whilst you were growing up, that, you made a mistake? I remember very clearly that my father was a very proud man, and he had guests, and I had a jug of water and it fell from my hand and my father scolded me.
Yeah.
So that was very embarrassing because I was a teenager.
Yes.
Until this day, it's something that has remained. So what you've got to understand is you ask the parent, how did they feel at that time?
Yeah.
How has it impacted you in your life?
Yes.
Do you think that when you do that to your child, how is it going to impact on them?
Yes.
Is it giving them confidence? Is it helping them to grow within themselves?
Yeah, or lowering their self-esteem.
Or what benefits? What benefit is it
Yeah.
to your child
Yes.
when you do that to them? How would you feel?
Yeah. तो आपको ना मतलब एक बच्चे की नज़र से बच्चा बन के आप सोचें कि आपको कैसे कोई क्रिटिसिज्म है तो आपको कैसे इम्पेक्ट कर सकता है आपकी सेहत पे फिज़िकली और मेंटली, और आपको कैसे आप कितना एम्बेरस आप शर्मिंदा होंगे दूसरे लोगों के सामने। तो उसी तरीके से वो बच्चा भी फील कर रहा होता है, और वी ऑल ऑब्वियसली मेक मिस्टेक्स इन डिफरेंट थिंग्स, बट द अप्रोच शुड बी पॉजिटिव, रिमेंबर। So anything you're dealing, anything you're doing with the kids, you're working or at home as well, जो positive encouragement है वो बच्चे में बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है, rather than criticizing them for doing something wrong और mistake सारे बच्चे करते हैं। नबी करीम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम जब obviously नमाज पढ़े होते थे तो लॉन्ग सजदे में चले जाते थे, और उनके जो पोते हैं वो उनके कंधे पे होते थे। तो इसी तरह से फिर दूसरी ये भी है कि नबी करीम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम खुद माशाल्लाह ऑब्वियसली एक रोल मॉडल हैं, दो कि उन्होंने पेरेंट्स देखे ही नहीं हैं। सो इट्स नॉट ऑलवेज कि आप के पेरेंट्स नहीं है या सिंगल पेरेंट है या कुछ भी, तो your children cannot become like something really good, you know। तो हमेशा जितनी आप पॉजिटिविटी किसी भी हवाले से अपने अंदर रखते हैं तो वो ही पॉजिटिविटी जो है वो बच्चों में आप देख सकते हैं। Am I right on that point? Yeah.
Yes, you're very right. I think कि the issue यहाँ ये है कि जब पेरेंट्स आते हैं ना पाकिस्तान से या इंडिया सब कॉन्टिनेंट से, उनको टाइम लगता है चेंज होने में।
Yeah.
You know, even जो बच्चे लोकल अथॉरिटी में होते हैं वो एक्सपेक्ट नहीं करते कि पेरेंट्स अंडरस्टैंड के स्ट्रेट वे उनको पॉजिटिव डिसिप्लिन सीखनी चाहिए।
Yeah.
ये जो टूल्स होती है ना ये सीखनी पड़ती है और इनको अंडरस्टैंड करना पड़ता है, और यू हैव टू अप्लाई देम फॉर चेंज। अगर आप अंडरस्टैंड करेंगे कि क्या इसमें पॉजिटिव्स हैं आपके लिए और बच्चों के लिए, यू विल रेडिली यूज देम। लेकिन nobody expects you to change कि एकदम आप फॉर इंस्टेंस आपने आज ही सीखा और कल आप अप्लाई करें। जैसे फॉर इंस्टेंस एग्जांपल मैं आपको देखती हूँ, हम जब गाड़ी सीखते हैं तो हमें वी हैव टू डू द रियर मिरर, भाई गियर्स कैसे चलते हैं, यू नो द रोड्स को स्टेप बाय स्टेप। सिमिलरली आपको नई जो स्ट्रेटजीज और टूल्स जो इस कंट्री में मिलती है ना उनको सीखें, बिकॉज इट्स फॉर योर बेनिफिट फॉर द चिल्ड्रन इन देयर फ्यूचर। तो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता जैसे आप गाड़ी को सीखते हैं फिर आप गाड़ी को चलाते हैं, देन सबकॉन्शियसली आपके माइंड में आपको पता चल जाता है कि भाई मैंने क्या करना है। आप सोचते नहीं है ना, जस्ट व्हेन यू गो इन द कार आप चलाते हैं गाड़ी, यू नो व्हाट टू डू। ओवर टाइम प्रैक्टिस, ठीक है। Nobody is a perfect parent.
Yeah, obviously.
We all make mistakes.
Yes.
But to correct yourself and to have a positivity in your life is better.
Yeah, try and happy to mend yourself.
Yeah.
In certain things, and we all are obviously not perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Miss Ghazala Mir, coming in my show.
You're welcome.
And I hope to see you again. और आप तमाम ऑडियंस, तमाम सिस्टर्स इस वक्त प्रोग्राम जो देख रही हैं, मैं सिर्फ यही कहना चाहूँगी कि जो बच्चे हैं वो आपकी प्यारो मोहब्बत के तलबगार होते हैं एंड दे रियली नीड दैट लव फ्रॉम यू, दैट अंडरस्टैंडिंग फ्रॉम यू। और जितने आप उनसे प्यार करेंगे, जितने अप्रोचेबल होंगे, जितना उनके पास बैठ के आप टाइम स्पेंड करेंगे, वो उनके लिए बहुत ही अच्छा साबित होगा उनकी लाइफ में। ऑलवेज़ रिमेंबर कि जो चीज़ें हम लोग बाय करते हैं बच्चों के लिए, जो खिलौने बाय करते हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हम लोग बाय कर देते हैं, हम समझते हैं कि दिस इज़ द एंड और यहाँ पे सब कुछ ख़त्म हो गया है, लेकिन वो आपके वक्त के तलबगार होते हैं। उनको आपका वक्त चाहिए। जब आप अपने बच्चों के पास बैठते हैं, उनको सुनते हैं, उनके व्यूज़ सुनते हैं, उनको प्यार और मोहब्बत से पेश आते हैं, तो वो आपके लिए, आपके बच्चों के लिए मेंटली, फिज़िकली इट्स रियली इम्पोर्टेंट एंड गुड। और उससे अल्लाह ताला भी आपसे खुश होती है, क्योंकि हमारा दीन बहुत ही प्यारा दीन है और उसने हमें ये बताया है कि बच्चों से हमेशा प्यार और मोहब्बत से काम आना चाहिए। इसी के साथ अपनी मेज़बान उज़्मा खान को दीजिए इजाज़त। एक दफ़ा फिर नेक्स्ट वीक एक और टॉपिक के साथ हाज़िर खिदमत होंगी। तब तक अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।